Hello students, today we are working on Excel Module 4, Project 1, Conyers Law Office Financial Functions, Data Tables, and Amortizations. So pull up your Cengage, click Start, download your Excel spreadsheet. I will have the instructions pulled up on my end. And we will get started. All right, click Enable Editing, and then save your file wherever it is easiest for you to find it later to submit it. And then make sure you change that 1 to a 2. All right, as always, make sure that author has your name. If it does not, please delete this and then re-download. All right, here we go. Step 1, Nadia is the office manager for the Conyers law offices in Dallas, Texas. The firm is planning to move its computer network into the cloud so that everyone working on a case can access information at any time and from anywhere. Nadia is in charge of securing a loan to pay for the network transition and asks for your help in creating a loan analysis. So first thing we will do is we will go to our loan payment calculator worksheet. So we need to resize row 1 to a height of 8.25 to reduce the blank space at the top of the worksheet. So make sure you get your double arrows, drag up to 8.25. There we go, I got it. So it takes a little bit of time to play around with it sometimes. All right, project step number 2, in cell D4, there is a date. That date has a defined name, which is unnecessary for a cell that will not be used in a formula. Delete the name for cell D4 from the worksheet. So we will go to Formulas, Name Manager, and then where it has Date, click on that, select Delete. Yes, we are sure it is now removed. Click Close. Project step number 3. Nadia wants to assign names to other cells to help her interpret the loan calculations. In the range D5 to D7, we will define names based on the values in the range C5 to C7. Then we will define names for the range F5 to F7 based on the values in the range E5 to E7. So we will need to do this each individually. So we will go down to D5. We are going to go over to define name. And then we see that loan amount comes up. That is exactly what we want to name it as. Click OK. D6, click on define name, rate, and we see that rate is in C6, and then click OK. We are on cell D7, define name, that's term, click OK. Now we're going to do the same thing in cell F5. Click on define name, monthly payment, and that is what is in E5. Click OK. Cell F6, define name, total interest. And finally, F7, define name, total cost. Click OK. Project step number 4. Nadia needs to calculate the monthly payment for the loan to fund the law firm's transition to the cloud. So we are going to work in cell F5. We will enter a formula using the PMT function. So what exactly is the PMT function? It stands for payment and refers to a financial function that calculates the periodic payment required to repay a loan based on a constant interest rate and a set number of payments, or the loan term, essentially determining the regular payment amount you would need to make on a loan. It is used to calculate the monthly payment on a mortgage, car loan, or other similar financial obligations. So we will go ahead and start the first part of this in F5, where we will enter a formula using that PMT function. So we will insert a negative sign after the equal sign. So we will set it up, equal, negative, PMT. Once you have that in, put in your open parentheses. Now that you have your open parentheses in there, now you see that we have a formula down here at the bottom. So what exactly does that formula stand for? So the formula equals PMT, which is rate, N per, PV, FV, and type. So the rate is the interest rate per payment period. The N per is the total number of payments. PV is the present value or the principal amount of the loan. FV is the future value, the remaining balance you want at the end of the loan. Type indicates whether payments are made at the beginning or at the end of each period. So let's go ahead and start working through our formula in our directions. So we need to define the names for the rate, the N per, and the PV arguments as follows. So our rate argument will be to divide the rate by 12. So we will go over and click where it is the rate, which is 7.825%. So we will choose that, and you will see that it will come up rate, because that is what we have defined the name to be. Now we will divide that by 12 and then put in a comma, because we are now finished with that part of the formula. So once you put in your comma, you will see down at the bottom here, now N per is now in bold. The system helps us as we're navigating and putting in our formula to show where we are in our formula. So if we were to get distracted or sidetracked, we know exactly where we are and where we can pick up from where we left off. So now we want to do the N per, which is to multiply the term by 12 to specify the number of months as the periods. So we will go over to the term, which is 10. Then we will put in times, which that is our asterisk. Please use shift and the number 8. Do not use the asterisk if you have a number pad on your keyboard. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it comes up incorrect. It does not recognize that symbol as times. So just make sure you do shift and the number 8 to get in your asterisk for your multiplication symbol. Then we will type in 12 and then comma. We are now done with that part. Now to finish up the PV, we will use the loan amount as the present value of the loan. So we will type in, we will click on cell D5 for our loan amount. We will finish that off with a closed parentheses, hit enter, and you should have a total of $3,937.24. There is your formula up in the formula bar. Go ahead and take a look at that. Pause the video if you need to. Okay, so now we are on project step number 5. We will work in cell F6. Nadia wants to calculate the total interest, which is the total amount of the payments minus the loan amount. So in cell F6, we will enter a formula without using a function that multiplies 12 by the term and the monthly payment and then subtracts the loan amount to determine the total interest. So that formula looks like this. So it will be equal, we will type in 12, multiply by our term, which is 10, and then we will multiply by our monthly payment, which we just made. And then we will subtract our loan amount, which is the $327,000. Once you have that, you can hit enter. We do not need to use parentheses because the system knows, Excel's really smart, it knows the orders of operation, which is our PEMDAS. Okay, on to step number 6. We will work in cell F7. In cell F7, we will enter a formula without using a function that adds the loan amount to the total interest to determine the total cost of the loan. So in here, we will just simply type in our equal sign. We're going to add our loan amount, which is the $327,000. Then we will add that to our interest so that we know how much we are repaying completely at the end of our loan. Once you have that all in there, you can hit enter, and your total cost should be $472,468.71. Okay, we are now on to step number 7. Nadia wants to compare monthly payments, total interest, and total costs for the interest rates that vary from 7.725% to 8.075%. She has already entered formulas to insert the monthly payment in cell D11, the total interest, which is here. The total interest in cell E11, and then the total cost in cell F11. So based on the range from C11, which we will click here, down to F26, we will create a one variable data table that uses the rate in cell D6 as the column input cell to provide the comparison that Nadia requests. Okay, so we will come up to data. We will go to our what if analysis, data table, and then click in column input cell, type in D6, and then click OK. Then you should have numbers that have populated in the monthly payment, total interest, and total cost columns. Okay, on to project step number 8. In cell D6, it includes the rate a bank quoted Nadia for the business loan. In the list of interest rates, range C12 to C26, we will create a conditional formatting highlight cells rule to highlight the matching rate and green fill with dark green text. So we are going to pop out that 7.825% down here just so that it's visible and we know that that is our rate that we were quoted. Okay, so we will go Home, under the Home tab, Conditional Formatting. We want to go to the Highlight Cells Rules, and then we want to go to Equal To, because it is that 7.825% that we are matching up. And then we want to click in cell D6 and then change our color to green fill with dark green text, which is the third choice. Click OK, and hopefully your 7.825% in cell C16 has turned green. Okay, we are now on project step number 9. Nadia has set up the structure for an amortization schedule in the range H4 to L15. So we're now looking at this schedule over here. We will finish the schedule by completing the formula in cell J5, which already contains an if function that checks whether the year in column H is less than or equal to the term in cell D7. So if you look up here, once you click on J5 and you have that selected, that cell selected, you will see that there is a formula already in here. We are going to add to it. So between the commas, you'll see that you have a 7 and then a comma, comma, and then a 0. So put your cursor in between those zeros, and then we are going to put in another formula. We will be using the PV function. So we will use defined cell names for the rate, the NPR, and PMT arguments as follows. So again, we are going to pull up that formula once we put in our information. So we were going to put in PV, parentheses, and there is our formula so that we know what we are following along with. So we need our rate. So our rate is 7.825%. We will now divide that by 12 to use the monthly interest rate. Now we are done with that part. Now we can go ahead and put in a comma. So this part we need to put in another parentheses because we need to subtract the year value in cell H5 from the term and then multiply the result by 12 to specify the number of months remaining to pay off the loan. So we will put in, we're going to click on term again, so that's the 10, and then we want to subtract the year, which is H5, from the term. We're going to close that off with the closed parentheses. We are then going to multiply that by 12. Once you have that in there, we can now put in a comma and finish out our formula. So now we're going to do the payment argument, which is to use the monthly payment as a negative value to specify the payment amount per period. So we are going to subtract, put in a negative there, monthly payment. And that shows that we are making that payment every month, and as we make that monthly payment, we are getting closer to having it paid off. Okay, once you have that in there, we will close it off with a closed parentheses. Once you have it in there, hit enter, and you should have a total in there of $304,546.95. There is the formula up there in the formula bar. If you need to double check that, go ahead and pause the video. Okay, we are now on project step number 10. Now we get to fill the range, which that formula that we just created from J6 down to J14. So now we have completed our schedule. All right, now we are going to work in our chart. So the line chart in the range H16 to L33 compares the amount of principal and interest paid each year of the loan. Nadia wants to make the chart more prominent on the worksheet and easier to interpret. So we will add a border to the chart using the lavender accent 1 shape outline color and a 1.5 point weight. Then we will add the default data table with legend keys to the chart to show the principal and interest values for each year. Okay, to do that, we want to make sure that we have selected our chart. We will select Chart Design and then go under Format. Then we will go under Shape Outlines. We will select Lavender Accent 1. Then we will go back and we will select Shape Outline again. Come down to Weight and make sure that we select 1.5 point. When you do, you should have something that looks like this. Now let's go ahead and do the default data table with legend keys. Again, make sure that you have your chart selected. We want to click on this plus sign. Go down to Data Table. We will click our arrow, and then we want to choose with legend keys. When we make that choice, you're going to see that this box down here is going to populate. Once you have that, you can click out. And we are moving on to project step number 12. Nadia is planning to list cost estimates for hardware and software purchases on the cost estimates worksheet. but has decided not to. So we need to delete the cost estimates worksheet. So hover over cost estimates, right click, and then choose delete. When you do that, we are now on project step number 13, and that is our retirement projections. So this worksheet compares details for 3 retirement plans Nadia is evaluating for the law firm. The options show the amount the firm would contribute to an employee's retirement plan per month for 10 years and the monthly rate of return. Nadia wants to determine the future value of the investments for each plan. So in cell C10, we will insert a formula with the FV function, which is our future value. So to set that up, we will do an equal FV, open parentheses, and there we have our formula that we can follow along with. So it will be the monthly rate of return, which is cell C6, comma, cell C8, comma, and then cell C7. Close that up, hit enter, and you should have a total of $34,616.96. Now all we need to do is grab and fill in that formula in columns D and E. Okay, all we have now left to do is to submit, so make sure that you save. And let's go ahead and submit. And that is 100 out of 100. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I know this one was a little trickier with all of the formulas, but I'm here to help in any way that I can.